All right. Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Wanted to do something a little bit different today. A lot of people really liked my screenshot guide for how I get my thumbnails. And one thing I've put a lot of effort into is my audio while in the sim. I've tried to make content off and on over the last decade and never really liked how I sounded. Not just my voice, but just how my voice came through in the video, and I just struggled with that. I did buy a Go XLR Mini. I did get a nicer broadcast headset, but even with that, it didn't really make a big change. So that's when I really started digging into it. I used to have a video I would share with people when I wanted to help them with this, once I kind of figured it out. But unfortunately, that video is no longer online. So I figured I'd show what I do, my settings, what I look for in OBS. And hopefully this helps some people out. Even if you just do one or two of the things, you should hopefully see some differences. So yeah, hopefully this is fun. I didn't feel like racing today on my lunch break, so we're gonna do this instead. I might turn myself off during the video. One, you don't need to look at me while I talk. And two, I might cover up some of the settings. And I'll probably edit something over the screen so you don't see a mirror of a mirror of a mirror. Because what we're looking for is down here in the right here in the OBS settings. So first things first, in fact, let's just turn me off and get that out of the way. I got a lot of scenes here. The big thing is you got to know your equipment. How does your sound get to you? How does your sound come out of your microphone? Some headsets will have multiple channels, so you have game audio and chat audio. Some of them will have just one channel and there's a little extra work involved. But overall, there's really just a handful of settings I definitely recommend. Big thing is once you have your audio coming into your mic aux, out of your headset mic, Blue Yeti mic, boom mic, whatever you have, what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to the filters. Filters here on the screen. I have a handful of filters. However, there is one filter that I recommend putting in first that I no longer use OBS, but it still works. Essentially what you'll do is you'll hit the plus sign and you want to add a noise gate. Okay. I'm going to turn the noise gate off for a moment. I don't want it to level up with the other noise gate I'm using. But what a noise gate is basically gives you a limit that your audio has to hit before it comes out through the broadcast. I like to have a noise gate set because I'll breathe kind of heavy at times and you guys don't want to hear that. And that's essentially what it's for. Realistically, you could probably just turn on the noise gate. I would minimize the attack so it turns on right away. I like to have a slightly longer hold time, which it defaults to 200 milliseconds. Sometimes you'll hear my audio cut off at points when I'm kind of stuttering or pausing between words. A longer hold time is going to help that because you don't have to speak again to open the gate. But essentially the noise gate, like I said, that's going to limit what your mic picks up. So you won't pick up heavy breathing, and it's super helpful. That's definitely the first one I recommend. I'm going to close that for a minute and we are going to share my middle monitor. Where I actually get my noise gate is through my Go XLR software. They have a noise gate. I'm at -35, 10 millisecond attack, 750 release. And I don't know what this middle rod does, but if it's anything other than 100, some stuff slips through. So that's what I'm running there. It works just as good with the OBS filter. I just had the ability to set it up in Go XLR so the noise gate works before it gets to OBS. So that's kind of the first thing you want to set up. Turn on your noise gate, and we're going to adjust that so it doesn't pick up your breathing. Let me switch back over here to the main monitor. So that's what you're going to look for there. Going back to the filters here, the next one you're going to want, and I'm going to delete that because like I said, I'm not using it, but these are your baseline noise gate settings. Once you have it set up, feel free to adjust the open and close threshold. The open threshold, that's where the audio has to be for the gate to open. And then once it drops to a point, it closes that gate. If I were to maybe lower my close threshold, it might not open and close so much on me when I'm talking, but that's just something to kind of test out for yourself. Every mic's different. But we're gonna actually close or delete that for a moment. Yep. Now I'm gonna scoot this over so you can see the sound bars, or let me narrow this up here. Second filter you're gonna want is noise suppression. Noise suppression is essentially gonna cut out some of the background noise. So like clacking of your keyboard, flapping of the paddle shifters, stuff like that. It's not necessary, but I do like to have it if you have a fan running. It just cleans it up a little bit. It doesn't work very hard on the PC, and it's just a nice filter to have. I literally leave mine -30. I think that's the stock setting, and I don't touch it. I do use the speaks or a speed X. There's no D in it. Over the R and N noise, it works fine for me. You can run NVIDIA's, but for some reason, I don't know, I've never had good success with that, so I never even installed that in the drivers. But essentially, you want to have your noise gate and then your noise suppression. Now, where things get a little more complicated is going to be compression. What compression is that basically allows you to speak at a higher tone, but instead of blowing out the speakers, it compresses it down. So the gap between like your whispering and your yelling is a lot narrower. So if you look at my mic aux bar here in OBS, I really like to have my voice right at the edge of the red line. Right when I initially talk, it's going to go a little bit higher, but that's the compressor like just taking just a moment to kick in. And then once I'm talking, it floats right around that yellow to red bar. That's kind of my go-to. I want my voice to be louder than the cars. I want you to be able to understand me. So that's what I aim for. The problem is, if I'm talking loud or yelling, we're going to either max out that red bar, and then when I talk normal, it's going to be a little too low. That's where the compressor comes in. For the compressor, let me switch my monitors over here again. For my compressor, I use a free software. It's from Tokyo Dawn Records. If you type in TDR Molotov, where's the free ones? Molotov, I can't pronounce it. That's the free compressor. You do the free download, it's there in your computer. I also do Nova as well, and you can do the Slick EQ. I do my EQ work through the GoXLR software, but before I had GoXLR, I would try to adjust with the standard EQ in OBS, and it's just not as good in my opinion. I played around with Slick EQ. I don't think I need it with my GoXLR software, but that would be the third one I'd recommend downloading. So you have TDR Molotov, Nova, and Slick EQ. I'm gonna kind of minimize that there and go back over to this screen, and I'll put the links to that in the description of the video. But essentially, you're gonna add a VST2X plugin. That's going to give you the ability to select your plugin. And so we want the Molotov, and then we're going to open plugin interface. So this is what it looks like here. Feel free to use my settings or adjust it to your needs. It's a little bit of trial and error. You can watch the bars move and kind of see where they line up, but that's only going to get you so far. Essentially what it does is, like I said, once you hit a certain point, it compresses that audio. So if I were to yell right now or whisper, the range from the audio bar is going to be fairly narrow. It's going to still stay around the same point, which is super helpful because without the compressor, if you yell, it's going to either blow out the speakers or you adjust it to that voice level. But then when you talk normal, you're too quiet. With this, honestly, I don't know what this does. Threshold is the main one. Once it hits -24, that's when it starts to compress. Your attack is how fast it kicks in. I don't know what that does. Release is 100 milliseconds. I could probably open that up a little bit and do 200 milliseconds. But typically, once you're done talking, you want it to release, so it just sounds better. I don't know. I'm bad at this. I'm doing my best here. But yeah, no, so that's kind of what you're looking for there. Now, ratio affects how much it compresses it. So let's just say if I go past 24 decibels, basically, from my understanding, every 3 decibels is going to be brought down to 1. So if I go to yell and we are at let's just say -10, and then I turn the ratio on, it's going to go from, what's that? Oh, let's just make math easier. Let's do 9. So 24 minus 9, that would be 15. So if I'm normally talking normal and it's at 15, and then that's a ratio is 3:1, it's going to take that extra 9 and turn it into 3 decibels. So we're really only going to be showing 27 decibels, or -20. Oh no, -21. Sorry, it's backwards. So that's kind of how that works. I've tried 4, I've tried 2, 3 just felt like a good spot. There's, like I said, a little bit of trial and error there, but that compressor really makes a big difference. And then I follow it up with the makeup. What the makeup does is that actually boosts the entire volume up. So if you have your mic in there, you're as loud as you can be, but without compression, you're not hitting the red, you're going to want to boost the gain. That makeup kind of picks up where the bass level is. So that's really going to fix the whispering side before that compression hits. So hopefully I did a good job of explaining that. I'm not an audio engineer, but that compressor makes a big difference on where your highs and lows are on the spectrum of the volume, which allows adjusting the cars in sim to be a lot easier. I'm going to close that. If you do have a hard time with your mic level without compression, you can boost the gain. I'm going to mute it before I get too loud. What that's going to do is you just go positive. So like that would add 12 decibels to my current peak. Some microphones don't pick up as well as what I have. That would be one of your first ones. So you do gain, noise gate, noise suppression. And then once those 3 are really set up, then you want to go in and do the compressor. Second one is TDR Nova. What that's going to do is it kind of gives you bands where you could have cutoffs. I have all my settings here. Basically, I have a high pass and a low pass frequency. So really high pitch stuff, really low pitch stuff is cut off. You'll see that yellow bar fall off there. If I turn that off, you'll see that. So that's what that does. I also only have 2 other, in fact, those aren't adjusted so I can turn them off. But I have 2 other bands here I mess with. This one here, it's at 0.4, 120, -9 decibel. That's going to help with some of the booms and the plosives in your voice. So that's kind of what that is there. Again, feel free to copy my settings. And then band 4 here, that's higher up, and that's going to do your de-essing. So when you say something with a lot of S, that's going to drop it down. What I recommend doing is just go S with your voice, see where that adjusts, and adjust your frequency to that. Again, feel free to copy these settings here. I just make sure I was recording the right screen, as that's going to make a kind of a big difference on certain aspects of your voice and what comes through the microphone. This isn't really changing the EQ of your voice. It's just taking out certain parts that don't come through well on speakers. So the plosives and the S's. And that's like pretty straightforward. You can play around with it. I don't know what some of these settings do, but I do know once it's set up right, it does sound a lot better. And you can see right there where it's compressing some of my S's as I speak. I have a lot of that in my voice, so it's super helpful for me. But that's that there. My third plugin is what they call a wider. I didn't even bring it up earlier. It kind of separates how your voice sounds in stereo. I don't add much. Honestly, I can't even tell a big difference with what I add, but I did it. I liked where my voice was, and I left it alone. But that's everything I do for my voice. And again, what I aim for is to have my voice bouncing right around where the yellow to red bar is. So when I start speaking, it gets into the red, but as I continue my speech, it stays right at the bottom of, or right at the top of the yellow. So that's what I aim for. You never want it to max out, but you want to get into that range. Now, as far as the cars, that comes through under my desktop audio. There is one thing I do with that. I'm gonna open up their filters. I add a compressor to the desktop audio. So the reason I do that is so when I talk, I want the cars to cut down. So what I do is I use the standard compressor from OBS. I just add a compressor, and these are the baseline settings. But what I do is I add sidechain. So sidechain basically means it's going to compress based off of my audio level of my voice, not itself. So I typically aim to have iRacing right around middle of the yellow, maybe a little like between -15 and -10. I definitely want it to be a little bit quieter than my voice, but close to it when I'm not talking. As soon as I talk, it's going to drop down, which I'm going to kind of shut up for a minute. You can see the music is working there, but as soon as I talk, that music cuts out. Obviously the sim is going to be louder than the music, but like I said, I aim for it to be kind of middle high of yellow when I'm not talking, but then when I do start talking, it drops just into the higher part of the green. You still hear the car, but my voice is gonna cut through. You're gonna understand what I'm saying. Now the kind of the final part to this is voice chat. So if you're in Discord, TeamSpeak, something of that nature, your headset's gonna kind of dictate what you do with that. I have, and if you saw my filters for desktop audio, you see I have two. One is for side chan or ducking based off of my voice, but my headset has voices go through another channel. So if you're using a higher end Astro headset, some of the higher end HyperX headsets, a Go XLR, your audio comes through in a separate channel if you set it up that way. I want the sim to cut down whenever I talk and whenever anyone else in Discord talks. Now race chat, I have it muted here. I was doing something the other day and didn't want to pick up some voices in the background. But I also do filters on them. I only do a compression filter. These are my settings here. I'm not as aggressive with the compression from OBS because, or not OBS, from Discord, because everyone's microphone's different. It'd be too hard to fine tune it. But essentially, I want them to show up right around where I do. Get into the red, and then float around the yellow to red border on the audio mixer. I think that gets them right where I'm at, if not maybe just a little bit lower. But with a little less compression, I think it kind of allows their voices to have a bigger range. If somebody yells, you can tell they're yelling. If somebody's whispering, you can kind of tell they're whispering a little more than if I do so. But that's kind of what I aim for. Hopefully that was helpful. I feel like I just threw a lot out there. Turn my cam back on. I feel like I just threw a lot out there fairly quick. Feel free to message me in the comments of the video if you have any questions on anything. It really makes a difference no matter what your headset is. You don't have to have a nicer headset. You don't have to have a Go XLR. It can make a big difference. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for watching this. I know it's something a little new, but hopefully it's helpful and you have a great day.